Hello, it is me, Liam of Punks in Pubs. No, we've not changed the start of this podcast because Fiddler has sued us for using their song Cheap Beer as our podcast intro. But let's face it, it is only a matter of time. I'm disrupting the start of this podcast to kind of ask you guys to throw a little change our way. Punks in Pubs podcast will be going to Punk Rock Holiday in Slovenia in August, and I just don't have the money to support this trip. So what I'm doing is I'm asking you, the listener, to support the podcast and help Punks in Pubs get to Punk Rock Holiday so I can go and interview some amazing acts that you guys will go and listen to at your leisure later in the year. You can donate by going to gofundme.com/get punks in pubs to Punk Rock Holiday, or click the many links that we have scattered all over social media on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter at Punks in Pubs. You'll find a link somewhere around there. We're not flying because that would cost around about £800 for the podcast to get over there. So we will be driving in a car, the near 2,000-mile trip. So onto a ferry, into France, through Germany and Austria, and into Slovenia. So please give as much as you can, even $1, a pound, €1, all of it helps. Not a fan of giving up your cold hard cash for nothing, that's fair enough. I'm also selling the Punks in Pubs t-shirts that are usually going for £15 just for £10. This will be on sale at this price until the moment I step into the car to make the near 2,000 miles round trip to Slovenia. You can pick up a t-shirt by going to the Etsy site and in the search bar search Punks in Pubs t-shirts. Right, that's that. Enjoy this episode of Punks in Pubs. Bye-bye.
Oi, you punks, go at my pub!
Hello and welcome to episode 42 of the Punks in Pubs podcast. My name is Liam Bird and I hope you are all well. From the off, I just want to let you know that Punks in Pubs will be taking all of August off. It's not because I'm sick of you, it's just that I've got a lot of shit going on at the moment with work and also this podcast. So we're going to take all of August off and we will be back on the 1st of September with a fresh interview, episode 43. So don't worry, it's only a couple of weeks away, you'll be fine. Go back, listen to past episodes and enjoy us that way. Also, don't forget, we will be still active on social media. That is because we have this epic road trip, which I keep fucking talking about because I do need your help, so please support us. So yeah, we'll be doing the Punk Rock Holiday road trip. We've kind of changed how we're getting there now. So originally we were going through France, into Germany, into Austria and then into Slovenia. But what I didn't know was the French are robbing fucking bastards. So in France, the country is littered with tolls and you have to use them. Otherwise, you have to take massive detours to get to where you need to get to. And for us to use the tolls that we need, we will be spending around about £80 paying on tolls. So we're now going a different way to save money. This is fucking crazy. So we're now going from Calais into Belgium, into Luxembourg, into Germany, down to Austria and then into Slovenia. It's adding about an extra hour onto our journey, so it's not too bad. So yeah, I feel like fucking Christopher Columbus trying to map out our maiden voyage to get to Punk Rock Holiday, and hopefully, unlike Christopher Columbus, we'll actually make it to our original destination. Please do follow us though on social media, because the reason that we are going to Punk Rock Holiday is I'm going so I can bring you some of the best interviews I can possibly can, but also I want you to kind of experience the road trip with us. I want you to feel like you're on the back of the car with us. So we will be posting a lot on social media. Yeah, come join us at Punks in Pubs on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Like I said, let's stop talking about that. Episode 42. Let's talk about episode 42. Episode 42. How many times can I say episode 42? It was recorded back in June when Punks in Pubs jumped on a plane and travelled to Berlin, Germany, for your audio pleasure. And I only went there for one reason, and this one reason was to talk to Flo Hayler. Flo, if you don't know, that rhymes, he is the creator and the man behind the world-famous Ramones Museum. So the Ramones Museum is literally what it sounds like. It's a bar, cafe, and a museum of everything that Flo has acquired during his lifetime of knowing the Ramones. And he has basically collected all this merch, all this memorabilia for your pleasure, only €5. If you get a chance to go to Berlin, definitely go to this museum. It'll be one of the best €5 you will spend. And also, Flo's normally around, so you can go talk to him about your own love of the Ramones. So Flo invited me to come and have a chat with him at the museum that's located in this really cool part of the city called Kreuzberg, which we talk about a little bit in the interview. So to set the scene, we're sat outside the Ramones Museum on some benches with Berlin life going on all around us. You will hear fire trucks, ambulances, there's a train that goes by, traffic, foot traffic. And during the interview, we accumulated a little bit of a crowd, so you'll hear some natter as well and some people taking pictures because, fuck, I don't know who they thought we were. But anyway, obviously just tourists thinking we're something we're not. As always, stick around to the end of the podcast because we play unsigned and new music. And this week, your band will be from Brazil. They are a band called ASCO. I think that's how you pronounce it, ASCO. They're a fucking fantastic band in the likeness of the Ramones, just fucking chaos and fun. So yeah, stick around for them. I'll be back after this chat, but sit back and enjoy. This is episode 42 in Berlin with me chatting to Flo, the creator of the Ramones Museum. Enjoy. And there's a free for an aux.
Okay.
But I mean, if you do an acoustic, possibly, but anything else.
Well, we have a Q&A tonight, so I might steal this. No, I have my sound stuff here, so all good.
So let's start it off. So we're in Berlin. It is hot as fuck today in Berlin. We're outside the Ramones Museum. What area is this, Flo?
This is an area called Kreuzberg. This is well, actually, the building that the Ramones Museum is located in used to be the last building in West Berlin before you could not cross over to the eastern side of Berlin. So this was the last building in the west. It was the dead end of West Berlin.
And we were just talking about property prices and how much everything's kind of skyrocketed. From my understanding, this is kind of like an up-and-coming, regenerized area, no?
It's tough to say. You know, Kreuzberg is one of the most demanded areas, I would say, in Berlin because it's still what it used to be in a way, which is this left-wing, lots of squats, cheap but communal life that you would have here. And that's changing quite a bit because, there's way more people in Berlin than maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago. And all the apartments that are, some of them are pretty big and they used to be pretty cheap, so there would be 1 or 2 people living in there. Now it's 4 or 5. So everything's getting more crowded, so there's more tension on the streets, and then you have the venues, you have the drugs, you have the tourists, and then you have the people that have been living here for the past couple of decades, and there's lots of friction going on too. It's if you want to experience Berlin, that's probably the place where you would go, because many other areas in the city are pretty much gentrified, so it's all clean and nice and owned by people, whereas this is where you still get some life, real life.
I mean, just getting the metro, which you can hear going across now. Like you see like the squats and the signs and the graffiti and how they're kind of expressing themselves through where they live, which is kind of like what I get from this area. Just trying to paint a picture for people listening. So as I said, we're in the street. We're just outside the Ramones Museum. I mean, the obvious question would be, why do you have a museum? But we'll try to get a little bit out of that later on. But what I'd like to do is kind of talk about yourself a little bit, and the idea that you collected all this history stuff of a band. If it wasn't the Ramones, would you collect anything else? Like, do you have like 1,000 beer mats at home? Like, you just kind of got stored up? Like, are you kind of a collectomaniac? Do you just enjoy gathering things and putting them in one place?
No, Ramones is the only thing I collect, but I do like to own a lot of T-shirts. I'm a T-shirt guy. I like to wear different shirts, and I just love T-shirts. Yeah. So I have shitloads of T-shirts at home from various bands, but Ramones, of course, is my favorite band to collect T-shirts from.
Well, I'll send you a Punks and Pubs T-shirt. Because we sell them, and I'll send one across, and you can have that.
Well, sometimes I struggle with my size. I tend to still order or buy small size, but a lot of people tell me when I approach them to buy T-shirts, they go like, "You would like a medium?" And I go like, "No, I want a small. Just look at me." Sometimes you have the false perspective on yourself. But yeah, if you want to get me one, I'll take a small.
Of course, I will. So if you don't mind, just kind of talk about like growing up and where you grew up. Am I right in saying you grew up in an area of Germany post the fall of the wall, whereabouts you were like in a border town, like east and west?
Exactly, yeah. My town where I grew up was the last town in Western Germany, if you want to call it a town. It was more like a forgotten village next to a fence. So there was no culture going on whatsoever. We didn't have a single punk in this town. Alternative music was foreign to pretty much everybody who lived there. So when music hit me, it hit me hard.
Yeah.
There was a German band called Die Toten Hosen. They, have some reputation in Argentina as well. And they wrote a song about this shit town in the mid-'80s, so that's how I was introduced to punk. Because, on this album where they wrote the song about my hometown, they also had a couple of other tunes, and most of them were pretty good. So that was my entree to punk music.
Because the reason I asked that is because from reading, a lot of punks who were near the border were getting into punk through armed force radio. So they'll have like John Peel sessions being played, and he'll play the Clash or the Ramones. Is that something that you also experience from like British armed forces playing their music?
No, but that's because I was living in this shithole. If I would have lived somewhere else, it would have been way easier to get like the British channels or maybe the American channels, even though we were exposed to their presence. I mean, we had all the allies in our hometown. They were somewhere on the outskirts in their barracks. So they were part of life to a certain extent. But music, no, that, I had various sources that music came from, mostly friends and, sisters and brothers and parents, and but nobody would listen to that kind of music.
So what were they listening to then? What were your brothers and parents?
Well, my dad was more like the typical grown up in the 50s rock and roll guy, so he would listen to his Chuck Berry and Elvis, which was cool, but he didn't like punk. When I got a couple of punk albums and he listened to it, he didn't draw the connection between his music and my music. Yeah, so that was pretty much it, And back in the 80s, of course, there was no MTV yet, at least, where I lived. you weren't exposed to music much. You would have to read magazines and listen to tapes from friends. Eventually somebody would hand you something that you would like, and you tried not to listen to what your big sister would listen to. So it was a struggle to find your own way. But then again, when I found it, there was no one else listening to punk, so I was the only one.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool because it gave you this unique tag that you didn't have before. So all of a sudden you were that guy listening to that kind of music, and that scared people and that made people interested. And all of a sudden you had this ally of misfits and outcasts around you, and that's the people you would spend your time with.
So I'm guessing if you grow up in like in a small shitty kind of town, finding your group of people who liked your kind of music must have been difficult. So were you excluded from like the I'm using rabbit here, quotation marks here, the cool kids at school, and like were you objectified because of the music you liked?
To a certain extent, yes. I wouldn't say I was not, I was not invited to parties or left out of things. It was the town was too small to do that. I mean, I think what it made, like what music or the Ramones especially made me feel is like I'm not one of them. I'm different than they are, and if you like the Ramones, it was easy to join their gang. You would get a jeans and a leather jacket and you would be cool instantly with just a T-shirt and some clothing and the music. So I became a Ramone, and I liked that. I liked to be part of their gang and not my friend's gang. But I wasn't excluded. Also I left home pretty early. I moved out when I was 17 maybe. So I had my own apartment, which made me, one of the places to go to for my friends, because you could drink and hang out and, not being watched by your parents and smoke. So my apartment was where people would meet.
So what was your first exposure to punk then? Like, was it the Ramones or was it you?
No, it was a German Toten Hosen band.
Yeah.
They opened the door for me, but it took me like maybe 6 months to discover the Ramones through them.
So in regards to German punk, what was the sound difference? Like, was it a lot more like heavy, unconstructed, or?
Well, punk came to Germany pretty late. I mean, I think we were at least 2, if not 3 years behind from the UK, maybe 4 even. And America. So the German bands, it was like they were the second generation of punk bands, I would say. They formed in the late 70s, 78, 79, 1980s, and they were much more aggressive. So you could say they were the worst, they were more inspired by the hardcore punk wave in America, Dead Kennedys, all those bands. So it was more that kind of music. The pop element in punk for the Germans didn't quite work. And also one of the significant differences was, of course, the language.
You had that space, and you already decided you were going to become a journalist at that point in time, or like did you ever toy with the idea of being in a band? Like did you try your hand at band?
No, never.
Because you just didn't like it? Too much work?
No, it never crossed my mind. You have to imagine there was nobody playing music there, so I couldn't even form a band. I could have been like a one-man band in front of a shop playing cover tunes.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the music journalist thing came up when I was looking for things to do later after school, and there was one moment where I saw the Ramones in Munich, and after the show I went to the hotel, and Joey was there doing an interview, and he said, well, if you have any questions, I'm not going to answer them because I'm tired and I'm going to go to bed, but you can ask the music journalist because he's got all the answers. So that was the thing that came back to my mind when I was looking for what I'm going to become, and I was like, music journalism, that sounds like a cool job, It's like you talk to the bands, and you're exposed to music and you make money. So, but that was the early 90s, so nobody knew that print is going to die that fast.
Well, you were saying there's no music around then when you were growing up and you weren't exposed to it. Like, when was your first show then? When did you witness your first punk show? That
was 89, I would say. German punk band, and who else I saw? I don't know, there were a couple of German punk bands I saw. They played in towns nearby my town. And then I went to see the Ramones first time in 1990. So that was my real first big punk show.
And was that like a come to Jesus moment?
It was life changing. So everything was different afterwards.
So what was it about that then? What was it like? Can you even explain it? Like,
it's hard to explain. You can ask anybody who saw the Ramones play. It was something different. I mean, it was like the earth would shake. It was an earthquake. It was not a show. It was just so loud, and the earth was vibrating, and finally you get to see those guys that you only know from record covers and maybe a photo if you were lucky, and they were so freaky looking you couldn't believe that these people actually exist until you would see them play, and then they hit you with a force. I think the only band that comes close is Motorhead, and the Ramones maybe were not as loud, but they were so intense.
The Ramones are renowned for being quite poppy in their punk. It's one of the tags that they get. So why was it the Ramones? Why wasn't it the Clash or the Pistols or the Damned? Like, it just not interest you?
Oh yeah, I had a huge interest in those bands as well, but I don't know what it was about the Ramones. It was the whole package. I think one of the major differences is because they were still around. I mean, that is something that you may not forget. Everybody else had already abandoned when I found that music. So they were the only ones I could actually go see. Plus, they had the look, they had the sound, they had the attitude, and they had, the humor too. They were actually pretty funny.
Yeah.
And that's, one thing you do not expect from a bunch of guys that look like they're gonna beat you up in the next second. But that was just because they never smiled in photos, but they were actually really funny.
Because there's a famous interview that you've given, or a story that you've told about you were outside a show and you went and said hello to them, and they were asking you, like, you're quite young, are you okay? Like, do you have a place to stay and all that sort of stuff? How did you end up building up that relationship then over the time?
Well, you go through the other fans first. I mean, it's like, you go to a show, you go to another show, then you meet people that you saw at the show before. So you go up to them, you go like, hey man, so I saw you yesterday. Are you going to see more shows? And so all of a sudden you have this small group of friends, and eventually one or two of them new roadies, crew members, band members, and that's how you get introduced to the band sooner or later. I think one of the reasons why these people why the Ramones were so friendly is because back then, a lot of people couldn't really speak English that well, including me, but I might have been able to speak it a little bit better than the fans from Italy or Greece. So I was the guy the Ramones would talk through.
Yeah.
So if Johnny had something to say to a fan from, I don't know, Spain, he would ask me to explain him in whatever language what he has to say. So Johnny would use me to speak English.
Did Johnny ever tell you something and then you go, I'm not saying that, and then just make up something yourself?
No, it was just, it was just small talk stuff, But Johnny asked me a couple of questions where I thought, I felt like, oh my God, I'm trapped. But he had a genuine interest in the fans' opinion. So when he asked you something, it was not to scare you, it was out of sheer interest. So he would ask, like, what song should we play, what song should we not play.
So all of a sudden you found yourself as like a set. You're setting up the whole set.
No, I would never have an impact on the set list, but he would throw back and forth thoughts he had himself. Like to just reflect his own opinion. There was this one occasion where he said, which song should we kick out of the set? And I said, why don't you kick out Pet Sematary, because it doesn't sound anything like on the album. And it's the same thing every night. It's kind of boring. I didn't say that. But and he said, well, I agree to a certain extent, but we have to play the song because the fans want to hear it. And if I could pick a song that we're not going to play, it would be Bonzo Goes to Bitburg. And I was like, why is that? It's such a great song. And he says, well, I don't like the song. I don't like to play it, but the fans want to hear it, so we play it.
You got to pick up the pieces. Come on, such a trash, you better hold yourself back together. Maybe you got too much cash, better call the lawyer when you're gonna take yourself in here. You're a politician and don't become one of Hitler's children. If I so goes to Pittsburgh after a cup of tea, and as I watched it on TV, it really disgusted me. I'm breaking off the balls and kind of understanding for a policy. Yeah, pick up the piece there.
So at what point did it stop feeling like you're speaking to the Ramones, those people, the posters that you had on the wall, to Ramones the people you can just have a general chat with?
Never.
Never. You always had
They
that
were
kind of...
always the guys on the poster. I mean, if they were actually in front of you, the aura they projected on you was even more intense.
Yeah.
You know, they were just their presence was so, you know, frightening and exciting at the same time that you would just be like, oh my god. And then until there was one moment though. I mean, after the Ramones had retired in '96, I went to see Johnny in Los Angeles once. I went to his house and he was a retiree, so we would just sit down and talk about the Ramones. It was fun, you know. That was a moment when I had grown up a little bit and I was a little bit more secure about myself, and he was not as intense as he was when he was with the band. He was a little bit more relaxed as well. So that was good times. It was good 2 hours of just talking, you know, and sharing memories. But when the Ramones were still playing, it was still that, you know, you still had that view on them that they're, you know, the guys on stage.
So at what point was it fandom to all of a sudden, I'm a collector? At what point did you realize, holy fuck, I've got a lot of stuff?
That was, I don't know the date, but it must have been '98 when eBay came up. That was in America only, and of course through emails and the first, you know, things like Yahoo or whatever it was, you would be exposed to other fans and memorabilia, and then eBay came up, and Arturo, the guy who designed the Ramones logo, he would sell a few things off eBay. And I was like, oh my god, I gotta have this, you know, this is Johnny Ramone's guitar receipt, I need to buy it. But this was, it maybe went for $300-400, which was a lot of money for me back then, so I didn't even think about buying it. But later on, you know, once I discovered eBay, there were things for $5, and I was happy to buy them, you know. Yeah. And that's how I started collecting, you know, outside my own little Ramones box. I mean, the majority of memorabilia was, of course, what I picked up when I saw them play. You know, set lists and posters and T-shirts and stuff like that.
Do you remember the first memorabilia you had? What was the one thing that you go, that's the first thing that I ever bought?
Well, you know, just the first album.
Yeah,
the first album I bought. I mean, I have all the tickets. I have anything I could get my hands on when the Ramones played. Of course, I would take home, because there was not much. That was before the internet. You know, if there was a newspaper, of course you would frame it. You know, that's the stuff you would do. And now it's very different. Now it's everywhere, and it's hard to collect these days. I mean, I'm glad that I collect Ramones. I mean, there's like X amount of stuff you could have. I mean, it must be a nightmare for people that collect the Beatles or Metallica or Kiss. You know, I mean, because there's no end.
Yeah.
And the Ramones, there's an end. You know, there's only X amount of stuff out there, and you will never have it, but you can get close. You know.
Did you ever come to a point where you actually thought, I'm getting a bit obsessed? Like, did you ever see yourself as obsessed?
No.
Or just a collector?
I have too many other things going on in my life. You know, This is just a hobby. It's always been, still is. I mean, I like it. It's fun. But it's not my main thing. You know, I have a family. I have a job. I have stuff to do. You know, so also, you know, with age, I think you're just less fanatic about things, and you think about letting things go. And so if I don't win an item on eBay, I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like I have a sleepless night because of it. Sometimes I do, though.
So you kind of spoke about your family. From what I understand, your partner, I don't know if it's your partner now, but partner at the time told you this has to move or I'm moving, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, she would never admit, but that's pretty much what she said.
Yeah.
But I understand why she would say it, because it was just too much. It was stupid. My apartment looked like a fucking Hard Rock cafe. Well, it looked like a Ramones museum. And she just said normal things like, we don't even have space for a photo from the two of us. You know, maybe we should make some space for photos from our family, from us. You know? And I said, yeah, I get it. So I just took it down, and I didn't plan on, you know, opening a Ramones museum. It was just in a couple of boxes, and then eventually I found this place that I could have for no money. That was Berlin back in the day, and so I just thought, you know, I'm going to do a Ramones museum. Let's hope it's going to last a week, and then whatever, I'm going to put it in the basement.
Because that's such a jump to go from, I've got this stuff. Most people go, I'll put it in storage, or I'll put it up in an attic, or something like that. You went, no, I'll do a museum because I think people are going to want to come see this.
Man, there are so many collections I would love to see. I mean, if you have a place like this, there's other collectors. They go like, "Oh, Ramones Museum, yeah, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool collection. Looks almost like mine." I go like, "Okay, so where's your collection? Where can I see it? Where do I pay €5 to see it?
Yeah.
Where's your fucking museum? Where is it? If you know, everybody can. You know, it's easy. You know, I'm not saying it doesn't take time and effort, but it's doable. And there's collections, man. I would love to see when it comes to records. People I know have gazillions of records, some of them in their shelves, and I go, well, you know, put them in frames, put them up, let me see them. The Clash, Mick Jones, you know, why does he have like 3 warehouses full of memorabilia and not one museum? You know, how many Sex Pistols collectors are out there? They're all on fucking Facebook, you know, oh, here's my blah 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 pass from 1970s. I would love to see it. Just fucking frame it, put it in your bedroom, and, you know, tell everybody to come by on a Saturday evening. I'm there. It's, you know, I think we should be way more communal about the things we have or we do. And I'm not talking about music in general. It could be if I collect stamps or vintage bikes, you know. You will find like-minded people, and some of the best friendships I have are because I have a Ramones museum.
I completely agree, man. There's some fantastic small museums out there, and one of my favorite ones is the Icelandic Punk Museum. Have you seen that one?
I haven't been there.
So it's just in a toilet. It's literally just in a male toilet, used toilet. They've used the stalls and plastered it with posters and pictures, and then just telling the history of Icelandic punk. Not punk, Icelandic punk. And it's just such a cool use of small space that wasn't being used by the council. They gave it to them. And now you go, and like you said, you pay your €5 and you walk around. And it's such a cool little experience, and you're right.
Well, you need somebody who does it, right? You need someone to take the initiative and do it. Or have the passion about things. I mean, the best things always come out of passion and love. You know, a labor of love. It has to be. You can't manufacture these things. You would feel it. It would feel fake and phony. You can't have a brand establish a punk museum. You know, it has to come from the heart. And I think that's exactly what you feel if you enter a place. If it's made up and made for money purposes, like, I don't know, Madame Tussauds or something, or if it's like somebody who did his homework and he knows what he talks about, you know.
Yeah. Can you remember the first person who paid to come into your museum?
No, I can't.
No. Were you excited though when they came through the door? You're like, oh fuck,
no,
someone wanted to come.
No, I was
just
never.
Like,
you know, it's excited. I'm surprised every day that there's people coming.
Yeah.
Still, you know, this is almost 15 years. But the Ramones you know, it's like, I think there's 2 things that cater to the longevity of the Ramones Museum. One is Berlin's a pretty cool town. 2 is the Ramones, I don't know how this happened, but they turned into this cultural icon. They're beyond music. They're in fashion, they're in lifestyle, they're like, you know, in South America, their religion, you know, I think, you know, you could say it's a fucking religion down there. And so I think I picked the right band, you know, for a museum. I think if I would have opened a Take That museum, maybe not so many people would come.
And you'll have to call it Never Forget. Have that.
Wow.
That's a song.
So if there's a Take That collector, male, female, I don't care, out there, this is your job.
Yeah.
You open a Take That museum and you call it
Never Forget.
Never Forget.
And we're both there, front of the queue.
Man, I pay €5 to see it, and I'll buy the shirt.
So, I don't want to get crass, but I read that you paid for was it a wall or something that was from Joey's apartment to come here.
It's Joey's Entertainment Center. It's a wooden furniture piece.
And you paid a shit ton of money.
No, well, I paid nothing for it.
Really? Okay.
I paid a shit ton of money for the shipping.
Yeah.
It's 600 kilos. And you have to air cargo it from New York to Berlin. So when I dropped it off at the air cargo center at JFK, there were some guys, you know, big, strong guys, and they were like, "Why do you ship this?" And I said, "Well, you know, it's family values, blah blah blah." So I had to pay a lot of money. And you know, CJ, he said, "Oh, I have this amp. Do you want to take it to Berlin?" I said, "Yeah, sure, man. I'll take it. And it almost didn't fit my car, but then finally it did. So I brought it to the air cargo again, and that was just as much. So, sometimes you have to pay a lot of money to get this stuff over from the States. But this was two, biggest pieces. I want it, so I'll do it.
Do you get people coming in, bringing in merch, like for you to have? Like, I have this. Would you like this?
Yeah, many people.
Yeah.
Too many people.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I encourage everyone not to bring me things. Because I probably have it, and if I don't have it, I probably don't want it because it outdates the Ramones' career era. The only thing I collect is stuff from 74 till 96. So anything that outdates that time, I don't know what to do with it. Especially things after the Ramones retired, I don't. Other bands, I don't care.
1, 2, 3, 4. Shooting at a rhythm on my bubble door. The sun is out and I want some. Each time hard, not hard to reach. We can hitch a ride to Rockaway Beach. Up on the roof, out on the street. Down in the playground, the hot concrete. Boys, rock is too slow. I'm glad that the disco on the radio. Rock, rock, Rockaway Beach. Rock, rock, Rockaway Beach. Rock, rock, Rockaway Beach. We can hitch a ride to Rockaway Beach. Rock, rock, Rockaway Beach.
So let's talk about the band a little themselves, because you've written a book that's kind of interwoved with your own life, and you've kind of written it from your own. Is that right? Because it's in German, so I haven't read it. But is it from like your own perspective and how you've lived your life and how the Ramones have played its part in your life?
Yeah, to a certain extent it is. It has to be. Because I think the fans are one of the most important things around the Ramones. I think if, the fans have a special relationship to this band. They're really special. Special kind. It's not like these people that they don't like a different band tomorrow. If you adopt the Ramones, or if you're adopted by the Ramones, then you never get out of it. It's like you have a contract for life. So I wanted to tell everybody how much the fans loved the band and how much the band loved the fans. And I think the way the Ramones treated the fans was really special. They took us seriously at a time when everybody else would just laugh at us, And we were not cool people. We weren't pretty, and we weren't rich, and we didn't have a lot of interesting things to say. But they were always kind and always caring, and so that was a very important aspect for me to bring across in the book. And also I wanted to say that Johnny Ramone was one of the nicest people and not an asshole like everybody else seems to project or write about in their publications, which is cool. I'm glad I never had to work with the guy, but from a fan's perspective, he was the greatest person you could possibly meet.
Through this book, you've obviously researched the shit out of it, and from being a journalist, you know how to do that properly, so you would have spoken to people, you would have gone through historical archives. So if you don't mind me asking, if I ask you some questions about the Ramones, and then you give me your own interpretation of probably how, because this is probably the closest we're going to get, really, to interviewing one of the Ramones.
It's doing the book. I mean, there were lots of question marks because there's lots of different recollections of events when it comes to time, places, people involved. So what I think I did with this book was lecturing 6 books and 27 Wikipedia articles, but there were things I of course couldn't be sure about. So I took the option that is most likely.
Because there's going to be people listening to this who know about the Ramones now, but at the time the Ramones weren't playing mainstream music. Like, they weren't on radio, MTV weren't playing them that much, and they were. Did you ever, from your research, did you ever feel underappreciated themselves? Like, because the Damned get the recognition, the Sex Pistols get the recognition, the Clash got the recognition, whereas the Ramones, they're in this kind of like spot whereabouts they are recognized, but unfortunately they're probably recognized more for their logo than they are for their music. Like, when you were talking to them, did they ever feel like they weren't getting the credit they deserved? Because the Ramones essentially created the Sex Pistols.
Well, I think they struggled with that throughout their career, and I think the music tells how much they struggled and how much they tried to be successful in a commercial aspect. But I think there was a time when they kind of understood or accepted that this is their fate. This is how it is. They won't be able to change it no matter what they try. I think there was the early 80s when they figured that no matter what they do, they're never going to sell albums. And they were just accepting, being a band that has to tour and sell merchandise. So they were kind of like ahead of their time in that aspect too, because nowadays nobody sells records, so everybody tours and sells merchandise. But I think the Ramones always knew that they're one of the reasons why they are so successful on their own terms was because they have a huge fan base.
Yeah.
A very loyal fan base. And they knew that they're never gonna be out there by themselves, because there's always gonna be people who love them. And I think that was the most important thing to them.
And I think it's funny, actually. The Ramones now, I think, would have survived better in the music industry than a lot of the other bands. Because a lot of the other bands really relied on their record sales. The Ramones relied on people turning out and going to shows and buying their merch. And that's what bands need to do now to survive. So I think the Ramones were very much... I don't think it's from their own choosing, but they were very much ahead of the curve in playing shows, getting the music out there, because the radio weren't touching them, their album sales weren't doing that well. So they had to get themselves out there a lot more, and that's probably why their legacy is so rooted in their fans.
Exactly. I think it actually helped them not to be commercially successful, because they could focus on themselves and what they do best. Of course, it plays with your ego if the bands that you inspired overtake you left, right, and center when it comes to commercial success. But in the end, they were doing okay. It was not like they were struggling. They were doing okay. I mean, they made money, and they were content with how much they made. Of course, it could have always been more, but they were. It was not that they, they were broke. They were doing okay.
Yeah.
And if you go to the Ramones Museum and you take your time to just like study some of the merch lists that hang on the walls, you will see that these guys sold 1,500 shirts a night, 2,200 shirts a night. It's a lot of shirts, man.
Yeah, it's a lot of shirts.
It's a lot of money, and it was all cash, so...
Uncle Sam didn't see any dime of that.
Probably not.
So the band were now... Well, the band, unfortunately, had their own disagreements, and there was periods whereby they weren't talking to each other, or there were lawsuits against each other. Do you know, towards the end, was there any form of regret? Do you know if they look back at it and go, we didn't deal with that in a good way?
The only thing I can say is what's written in the books. If you read Johnny's autobiography, he doesn't regret that he didn't talk to Joey before he died, but he or in the movie End of the Century, he says that he felt bad when he died. I mean, I think the best way to compare it is it's like people. I mean, these people were never friends that much, maybe in the beginning a little bit more than in the end, but they always had their own little camps and people they would have around them, so they were not really close. I mean, they spent a lot of time together, but they wouldn't spend it talking about intimate things or like how they feel, they would just try to get out of there as fast as possible. But then again, if you spend so much time with someone else, and of course, these people are part of your lives, and you feel bad when they die. I don't think anybody had any regrets. No, I think they were just way too happy what they accomplished. I think that was the main thing. I mean, Johnny Ramone was definitely happy, in the last couple of years when he lived in Hollywood, and he loved the fact that he would have all these friends. Hollywood celebrities that would love him for being Johnny Ramone and how much he inspired them.
while writing the book, you're obviously also still running the Ramones Museum. Did you ever get a point where it's like you were dreaming Ramone dreams? Like, were they just so embedded into your life that you were like, I don't want to hear any fucking Ramones stuff at all. I don't want anyone even to say Ramones to me.
No. There was never a point when I felt like this is too much. No. It's if you write a book or like just anything you write, it's like, and every sentence you have to squeeze out of your brain. And sometimes I had a good run and I felt like, wow, this is really cool. It's like exactly what I wanted to write. So I had a couple of moments where I felt like this is going the right direction, and then there were a couple of days when you would just have to do plain research, and you would research for 4 hours, and then you would write like one line, and you'd be like, how am I gonna finish this? And as you just mentioned, there's family. I have a kid. I have a job. I have this place. I have tax. So I always had to like squeeze a couple of hours into the day to get this over with. But I'm glad I did.
So the museum itself has moved a couple of times now. Yeah. I'm guessing because you need to expand, get bigger, more people. No. The city changes, and you either change with it, or you rot. No, this move was definitely the last. Yeah.
This is going to be the last incarnation of the Ramones Museum. If we have to leave for whatever reason, there's not going to be a new Ramones Museum. And when I found this place, I felt like this is it. It's the right area, it's the right space, but it's not bigger. It's just as big as the old one. It's not more expensive. It's just like the same amount, which is rare, especially in this area, to find a landlord that says, well, I like your idea. Here's your place. It's cheap. Have a good day.
Nice.
Yeah, but you still have that mentality, though, in Berlin. Not everybody's greedy. A lot of people are greedy, but my landlord is definitely not one of them.
Good on his landlord. So you built a stage, and one of the first bands who played here were Alkaline Trio.
Oh yeah, that was the previous location. Yeah.
How did that come about then?
Well, I was running this magazine, so I was exposed to music and bands every day. So I heard they're in town, and I asked them if they want to play, and Skiba said, "Sure, man." So that was when Alkaline Trio was a shitty punk band, and now Skiba plays in Blink-182. I think it would be way harder to get him to play a couple of songs in the Ramones Museum. Then again, he's cool enough to do it, Yeah. Alkaline Trio was the perfect start. Once you had that name on the list, everybody else came. It's going to take a while now because he needs to get to
So for people listening, there's I think it's an ambulance trying to get by, but there's a shit ton of traffic in front of it.
I could go on about this for hours, man.
As in traffic or the noise of an ambulance?
They're just like the people who plan. Like, who is, like, just really quick. Berlin used to be east and west. So there's, and the main divide between the two parts is a river, which is right behind us. So there's 4 bridges crossing the river. And there's always traffic.
Yeah.
Because it's the only way you can cross over from one side to the other. Now, because they're smart, they closed 2 bridges next to each other at the same time. I don't know why people would do this. And so this is what happens. You have traffic all day anyway, but now you have double traffic because they only have like 1 lane to cross. And then, of course, the people that need to go to hospital have a hard time getting there. Bad on them. Maybe people die because these people don't know how to plan.
That'd be an interesting documentary if someone in Germany wants to do that, is looking at like the death rate since the 2
I'm
bridges
sure every
closed.
city, anybody in any city has the same kind of issues. I don't know what these people do in those glass towers. I have no idea, man. But they really don't know what's going on out in real life. They don't even go drinking.
So, I'm just trying to bring it back now. CJ Ramone was the first Ramone who came to the museum to perform. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
And how was that? Like, was it fun for him, or did he enjoy it? What kind of experience
I
did
hope,
you have?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. CJ is such a down-to-earth, polite, honest, funny, knowledgeable, wise, smart man that I hope it was fun for him. I hope it was challenging enough, because that guy is You know, he's got so much in his brain. It's like whatever you want to talk about, he probably knows better. Yeah, he was the first Ramone to come, and I think he's been here 4 times. He's going to be back in July. We're going to do a reading. I tried to do new things with him because he played 2 or 3 shows. We had 1 movie night, and now I think it's time for something different. So I know he's working on a book. I mean, whenever I saw him and we spent time on the bus, he would read me chapters, and I said, well, why don't you bring some of your chapters from the book to the Ramones Museum and read? Because I like him when he's got his glasses on and when he's just the wise guy, you know, not just a musician playing Ramones songs. So that's what we're going to do in July. Richie Ramone was here twice. He's a funny guy too. He spent a couple of days in Berlin last July. We watched the World Cup finals together last July. We had Q&As and meet and greets. I really like him. You know, I never saw him play in the Ramones, but when you see him play solo, you understand the music and the songs and the albums he played on. And Marky is going to be back in July. I think I have to mention that too. Otherwise, he's going to give me shit that I didn't say it.
Did you see the Marky Ramone Johnny Rotten thing?
Sure.
What did you think about that? Did you think that was like PR for the movie?
No, Rotten was drunk.
Yeah,
he was just rotten. You know, he was just insulting everybody. Everybody knows that. You know, but then you have a cool guy like Rollins who plays the game, and then you have Marky who's bitter. And there's like it shows the bitterness the Ramones had towards the Sex Pistols all through their career. You know, if you ask the Ramones, the Sex Pistols destroyed punk.
Well, I mean, there's a funny story about the Ramones when the Pistols came in there backstage and they pissed in all the bottles for Stingy to drink. They kind of like doing that. Supposedly that was a nice little prank they like doing.
It's a good prank. I wish it's true. You know, I wish it's true. I would definitely say. It could be true, but no one knows. You know. I mean, there's a famous picture of Johnny Ramone meeting Johnny Rotten backstage at the Roundhouse in 1977, and Rotten drinks a beer, so it could be that beer, but who knows?
You know. So what bit of memorabilia would you like to get your hands on for this museum? If you could get any bit of memorabilia,
I would like to have Johnny's guitar. When we talked about it in 1996, he said, how much would you pay for it? I didn't give him a number because he pretty much said it's $20,000, and I couldn't afford that. But that's the amount he sold it for, $20,000. I mean, which is nothing from today's standards of what's being paid for Ramones memorabilia.
Yeah.
Some of his 7th or 12th backup guitars get sold for $90,000, you know. Stuff he maybe played on stage either once or 5 times, maybe in a movie. An instrument would be nice, but I will never get one, so you have to be realistic about it too.
If someone has one and you want to bring it in, I know earlier on you said don't bring stuff into the museum, but if you've got a guitar...
Yeah, but even if they bring it in and I can't pay for it, you know, and these people know what they got their hands on, and if they want to give it away, they should make sure to get a shitload of money for it. You know, funny enough, music memorabilia, not just Ramones, it's like art. It's like real estate. People buy that stuff because they know it's not going to lose any value.
Yeah. I'm going to say you must insure the shit out of everything. No, mate, come on.
No, I could never afford an insurance. You know, if this place burns down, I'm doomed. But you know, people steal, you know, and sometimes, you know, they're successful stealing. An item is gone, and I hope it's gone for good. You know? I hope that somebody appreciates what he stole and puts it up in his bathroom at home. I don't know, but I'm trying to secure the stuff as good as I can. Something is being stolen, then be it. You know, you have to be. That's life. You know, that's what happens. You know, it's like. You know, there's people that live in California, their houses burned down. I mean, I feel super sorry for them. I mean, and of course, you know, it's sad if things get stolen or, you know, get damaged. But that's a risk. That's part of the deal, you know.
So are you looking to like put more stuff into the museum, or are you done now? Man. Yeah, always looking.
Well, first of all, I'm always looking. Second, I have still so much stuff at home that needs to go up, but so I have to apologize to everyone that there's a few items that they don't get to see in the next couple of weeks or months because I don't have the time to set them up because, as I mentioned, this is a hobby.
Yeah.
Do not forget, this is a hobby. It has to fund itself. It's a fun, it funds itself, which is great. Most hobbies, you pay a lot of money if you go fishing or skiing. but there's people that work here, so I mean, I would love to not charge any money for coffees or entry, but I have to because I have to pay rent and pay the people that work here. But other than that, there's no profits or whatever.
I mean, €5 is a bargain for this place, mate. So you're doing well.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, and I honestly sometimes I feel bad because I go like, oh shit, these people paid €5 to get in, and now all they see is 1,200 pieces of paper. But they're actually pretty cool pieces of paper.
Right, we've come to an hour, so we're going to start wrapping this up, Flo.
Thanks.
I think the most obvious question is, over the years that you've done this, what's been the most satisfying moment you've had while at this museum?
It's like, what's your favorite item in the museum? I can't tell. There's so many great moments I had and have in this place, like this interview being one of them.
Cheers.
And sometimes, but you have to make sure when it comes to your mindset that you cling on to these moments and do not be distracted by the daily mayhem that you're exposed to with just running a business. Shit breaks, people are sick, you don't get stuff delivered, you have to make bank transfers and all that stuff. There's a lot of the work around it is just so time consuming and tiring that sometimes it's hard to really motivate yourself. And I need those nights and moments and people that come here and meet those people and hear their stories to be motivated, because otherwise, I could just not, it would be a way better and easier life without it, So that's what keeps me going, and that's what makes me survive. It's like the people that come here. So without them, it just wouldn't make any sense.
Perfect. Well, normally we finish the podcast by playing a little tune from whatever band we're playing with or whoever we're talking to. So what Ramones track would you like us to play you out on?
Outsider.
Perfect. Flo, mate, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. That was fun. And good luck with all the other podcasts. This is great. And I hope that people keep tuning in. I mean, for sure I am going to tune in now that I know that it's a very detailed thing and not just, like a brush off like the usual facts that you get to know. But I think this is a really good format. So thanks for doing this and taking the effort in coming to Berlin. I mean, for everybody out there, I mean, this guy flew over to Berlin to do this. He was not, he was not just in town. And there are so many other great things to do here, So thank you.
No, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you to Flo for giving up his time. And Flo's right, we travelled to Berlin to speak to him and only him. And that's why we're asking you to support the podcast so we can go to Slovenia and I can bring you interviews just like that from Punk Rock Holiday. If you can give up a little cash, and you won't miss it. I don't want people giving up money if it's like you need it. Like, fucking keep your money if you need it. But if you are in a position, you're in a fortunate position where actually you can support the podcast, please do. If you can go to gofundme.com and search for Punks in Pubs in the search bar, you'll see our logo. Click on that and donate what you can. All of it will help us with gas and petrol money. It is what it is. I don't really like asking you, but I have to, because this is the only way we're really going to be able to fund our trip there. Let's talk about a bit more music, because that's really why you're here. So playing at the show this week is a band from Brazil. They are called ASCO, and this track I'm about to play you is fucking amazing. It's called Trevas. Make sure you check out the band. They're on Bandcamp. There'll be a link on the social media site, or also a link on this podcast episode on your phone. Right, that's it. That's us done for the summer. We will be back on the 1st of September. Enjoy your August, and don't forget to follow us on social media to see our epic road trip across Europe. Until next time, if you're going to a punk show and you see someone fall down, you pick that fucker right back up again. I'll see you on the 1st of September. Bye-bye.